Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. And sorry for the little wait there. I'm just waiting for Des to join now, and Sarah's going to be joining as well, and then we should be able to get started. Um, so now let's see, there's
Hi,
Des.
Teresa.
Hello, Des. How are you?
I'm good.
Very good. Um, Sarah should be joining as well, but she can take her time. So I'll just kick off here, Des. So thanks everyone for joining today for our discussion with teacher and Athena Tracker mentor Des Healy. Um, Firstly, while Des is waiting in the wings, I'll run through how this webinar will play out. So we'll start by having a chat about Des's experiences for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll have time to look at a few questions from the viewers yourselves. If you have any questions while the webinar is going on, please drop them into the Q&A box and we'll do our best to address as many as we can during the session. Be sure to include your name because if we don't get to your question, we can follow up with you tomorrow. Anonymous questions can't be followed up with, unfortunately. The session is being recorded and will be sent out tomorrow. So as you can see, Sarah's here as well. She'll be working away in the background and might pop on at the end if there's anything that she might like to address or add from the webinar. Um, so to get started, Des is a Tralee native and a highly experienced educator with over 30 years of service at CBS The Green in Tralee, County Kerry. During his career, he taught maths and English and was actively involved in co-curricular life such as football, rugby and debating. Des also served as SSE and SIP coordinator, where he first encountered the Athena Tracker. And he also spent a period as a sixth year head. And if that wasn't enough, Des has joined Athena to help deliver SuperUser Workshops around the country, as well as carry out the Athena Tracker Mentorship Programme. Welcome, Des. Did I miss anything
Thank
there?
you.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, that's fairly comprehensive. I'm thoroughly enjoying the mentorship, the mentor working and meeting new people, attending super user workshops. Very much enjoying that at the moment. But no, that was more or less it, Teresa.
Very good. So can you tell us a little bit about your teaching background and how you came to be an Athena Tracker user?
It was a long route. As a very young teacher, I had the good fortune to be seconded on to a special education needs diploma course run by Drumcondra Education Centre, and when I joined the Green, then I had that bit of experience, and so I was deputised to collate records on special needs students, and I was doing testing, literacy testing, and putting together the data on that. I got involved then in arranging for with NEPs for psychological assessments, and I was overseeing uh, the program, sorry, the DARE program, or reasonable accommodations, it was called at the time. And so making the applications for that. And then we had the good luck to get two new people into the school who were already upskilled on special needs and they took over that department. And I was deputized across to literacy and numeracy. It was an initiative being run back in 2012 after Ireland had some poor run of PISA results, and they were looking to address this. So I think with the PDST at the time, they set up this in service, and I was again lucky enough to attend that because it was brilliant, very interesting, very well run, great resources, brilliant advice. And so I ran with that then for a number of years. I That was interrupted for a while when I was a year ahead for a couple of years, and then I was asked to return to school improvement planning and SSE. So, so that was my story, and then it was sorry in the latter incarnation of that over the last 4 or 5 years that I came across Athena, and was very sorry I hadn't come across Athena a number of years previous. It would have saved me an awful lot of bother.
Oh, great. So while
Anyway,
we're on the
that's
topic
probably
of
another story.
yeah, so while we're on the topic of self-evaluation, school improvement planning, can you tell us about how you use the Athena Tracker to help you with those things?
The school was well experienced at collaborating on school improvement planning from way back in 2012. We had the good fortune to invite the PTSD people down to give us advice with a school improvement plan initiative with digital learning and using digital resources for teaching. So The PDST were doing a trial with 12 schools across the country at the time. We didn't qualify for that trial. We didn't have the infrastructure, the computer network in place. But we did catch them at the end of the trial to come in and speak to us. And the lady that gave that in service was fantastic. Now, she was mitered trying to teach the teachers how to use the how to use digital technologies because we were all at different levels.
Hmm.
So at the end of it, she was brilliant, but at the end of it, the advice she left us with was invaluable. And she said, would you not be better off to run this in-house yourself, that you have enough competence? A few individuals have the competence to maybe upskill the other teachers. And that set us down a route that was really, really much more wholesome, holistic, productive, much more productive. And so we were very proactive in that regard then for 2 years. Teachers making their own video tutorials and upskilling the rest of the staff on Teams. The principal was very supportive and setting aside meetings, staff meetings. She'd set aside maybe half an hour staff meetings where we would coordinate the upskilling of teachers, because they were all in one place at the one time, and we go to
Hmm.
3 or 4 different rooms, and there were 3 or 4 different levels being catered for, and we'd upskill very quickly on some aspect of OneNote or Teams. So we were very lucky then when the shutdown arrived for COVID, because we were able to roll out the digital learning not quite seamlessly now, but we were well prepared for it. So all of that led to a kind of supportive attitude within the school towards new initiatives. This had worked, and so when I came back from that, I was introduced to Emily by the principal, and they were deciding whether they take on Athena or not. And I see straight away this is a fantastic product. So we took that on board, and I was involved in. So I wasn't actually the administrator of Athena at the time. I think we were being babysat very kindly by Athena in those early stages, and so I was using Athena to roll out different initiatives or to support different initiatives at that stage, and we used it. Um, to help the teachers transfer from, I forget, Excel or whichever we were using
Yeah.
to digitally upload our own results. And we ran that as a whole school initiative. And when I say we, I should actually have prefaced everything I say with the fact that anything that I had been involved in the green that was productive or positive was a we. It was a collaboration. That the one thing I learned from the PDST and from other people that were coming in and courses I'd gone to is that be sure to embrace the expertise that you have in situ, and don't underestimate the enthusiasm and volunteerism that you might be able to tap into. So
That was going to be my next
yeah,
question, actually. Is it like
right.
who did you gather? Who was in your team? And how did you all work together
It
to
varied
implement the
depending
Athena?
on the initiative, really. For the digital initiatives we were running, it was probably people that had that expertise, and it was hard to tell who that might have been. So that was across all subjects, really. Um, but it was the same principle then when I was looking for a team on um, let me see, on the upskilling or uploading the results, I just would have picked a broad spectrum of teachers that would kind of reflect the staff. Maybe 1 or 2 surprise additions, people that mightn't have been, fully committed to the whole idea of
Okay.
the extra workload as it was perceived at the time, that this was
Yeah.
some extra workload. But but we were easily or very quickly we were able to dispel those notions by showcasing. So we'd gather our team of geography teacher careers always.
Would it
Um,
be year heads or just anybody who
Not
wanted to
necessarily,
do it?
actually. No, not because you see, we already had an academic mentoring program running ever before Athena. Again, it was a speaker in from PTSD who had suggested this as advice. So our year heads were running the mentoring, or sorry, the academic monitoring program. But obviously, then when Athena came along, and I mean, just marveled at the convenience of identifying using any number of means, but the expectation summary particularly, and that was saving them so much time. And it was brilliant then for them to give testimony at staff meetings as to how useful this was. So it was making my job an awful lot easier to co-opt people onto this task force or committee that we'd have to run whatever initiative it might be in relation to Athena.
Great.
But
So what would you say with the difference? What is the difference between being, let's say, a 6 year year head and having an academic tracking post?
oh, great question. Yeah, um, I found the year ahead an awful lot easier. Actually, I found it an awful lot easier. It probably had more duties attached to it, but its visibility and its kind of transparent accountability for me made it very easy because I'd spent a lot of time in school improvement planning and you could say an academic monitor and that's kind of open-ended and not very transparent. And you could find yourself, if you're not careful, working in isolation. So when I was doing the year ahead, again, the apparent accountability of that, people could see that you were doing your job. But
Mhm.
regularly you had this sense, or I had anyway, this sense is kind of overshadowing that, are you doing your job? And obviously then there was the odd staff member would pass a remark, Des, you've a cushy number there, so doing the academic tracking. So I did find that the year ahead, because of its obvious accountability, and you were firefighting and you were seen to be firefighting and you had the kind of the gratification then of maybe on occasion putting out a fire. Whereas with academic tracking or with academic monitoring or something like that, it's more like you're checking smoke alarms in the background. It's not quite the same um, uh, value amongst the staff, really. But yeah, so I suppose I learned then to be sure to set down clear parameters at the start of the year with the principal. That was for the last 4 or 5 years. So it was quite, so the bookended nature of developing an initiative, could roll on in any number of directions. So then I would set down clear priorities with the principal. I'd go away then, I'd gather my team. We would decide, listen, these are the priorities. Well, this is how we'll do it. And we'd set a time frame on that. I'd go back then and okay that with the principal. And he said, there you go. So that was my role then bookended. And it took a lot of the stress. And the stress that was coming from that was self-imposed.
Mhm.
Me wondering, was I doing enough for everyone? So that helped a lot.
All right. So you've been a teacher for over 30 years. Can you tell us a bit about how using the Athena Tracker has changed the way you work with students? And if you've an example of, this, that would be great as well.
I was a maths teacher, and so I was drawn towards, data and graphs and standard deviations and all this stuff that most people have enough sense not to have any interest in. And so I used to use what I can see now in retrospect, only from having eventually embraced fully the kind of philosophy that underpins Athena, where the child is testing himself against his own potential, his own innate potential, not some objective criterion that maybe I'm setting in a maths class by saying, look, record both these scores, the class average and your score on a particular test. So that kind of cold metric served me very well because I didn't know any better. But then we were interviewing. We started an initiative. We used actually Athena to develop an earlier initiative on school improvement plan, where we were getting students to take responsibility for their own learning, and they'd record their results on a school journal. And we were on to Athena to know could we digitize this and I think it was possibly Sarah that had suggested that you can record on the notes section in the teacher profile there an awful lot of material, and so what we used it for was an experiment that we rolled out in fifth year, which was our kind of research and development department, for for all that time. So where we'd trial any of the initiatives, or most of the initiatives, sorry. So we rolled that out by interviewing the students. Now, interviewing is overstating it. That I'd give out my test results. I'd call the student up. I'd show him his profile. This was maybe October, November. We'd have a couple of tests done at that stage. I would have uploaded them. So, and he has the full context of his background, from first year on the academic student profile. And we'd invite him to set a student target. And then we discussed that, how relevant, how valid, how realistic it was. And we set about recording um, what plan the student was going to put in place with some advice from myself to, to attain or to reach that goal, that target that he was setting. And we reviewed that after a while. That was enormously instructive, I think. And all six of the teachers that were involved in that trial would have testified to that. And that was unusual, that all six of them, there was a clear consensus that this was one very, very worthwhile because it was initiating a new type of conversation.
Mhm.
It was a conversation that was based around the child's own aspirations, his own lived experience in that subject. And he wasn't being tested against, the best guy in the class or the average guy in the class. And that was very productive. We also, if I can branch out, maybe I'm not sure if I'm giving
Yeah.
too long an answer now. I probably do, but we got a new vice principal in, and he had suggested a one good teacher um, initiative, and it was in the course of that that I probably fully appreciated the value of the Athena Tracker um, and the type of conversation that it was initiating. The problem when we rolled out that initiative is that people were slow to get involved. Now, we'd all volunteered, but when it came down to it, sorry, I should qualify that or correct that and say people were slow to deliver. Because about 3 or 4 months into that initiative, there hadn't been too much contact with the kids. And so we surveyed, and that was a continuum, by the way, a kind of a culture within the school from way back, is that we always kind of monitored whatever initiative we were running with. We would keep an eye on it by surveying the key
Yeah.
stakeholders, either
Could
kids
you
or
could you give us just let us know what the One Good Teacher initiative is?
oh, sorry. The One Good Teacher initiative was a build, an extension of a One Good Student initiative that had been brought in by the careers teachers there. And again, all with a view to making the school maybe a more wholesome place, to give a voice to students, to induct students. So the one good student was where an older student would have 3 or 4 younger first years, and he would meet with them and talk to them and tell them what's what within the school. And that was really productive. And the first year, the feedback from the first years was that they loved this. It made the transition from primary to secondary a lot more comfortable, because they felt they were probably better able to navigate the trials and tribulations of a day in the life of a secondary school, a busy secondary school, a little bit more
Mhm.
easier, sorry, or more easily with the guidance of a fifth year who is telling him kind of what's what. So that was really the feedback from that at staff meetings was hugely supportive. And then we got this new vice principal in from Skull, he was, I think, and he said, would we use the one good teacher? And he was looking to further develop that original initiative to kind of set up a relationship. Now, we always had a very good relationship with kids because there was so much extracurricular going on in the school, and there was always a good atmosphere between teachers and students anyway, and it was a young kind of progressive minded staff. But so to further develop that, he'd introduce this one good teacher, whereby you would have 4 students assigned to you, and you would touch base with them during the year to see how they're getting on. And it was meant to be a kind of pastoral care, more so than an academic mentoring. But because, as I'd said earlier, teachers weren't really delivering on that, halfway through the school year. So we reviewed it, and I had the idea that maybe that if we'd used the Athena Tracker and the student's own page as an icebreaker, that more teachers might be in, it would help teachers and myself particularly because I wouldn't be the most empathetic individual and it wouldn't come naturally to ask a student something outside of the remit of the subject. Other than how
Disagree
do you
on
get
the
on in
empathy
football or
question.
something like that. Whereas I wouldn't have been the best at that. So, and clearly there were a lot more teachers, I suppose, maybe who weren't as comfortable with that conversation. But anyway, we saw a huge increase in the uptake and on the delivery of that because we were using the tracker, because then it's non-confrontational, it's objective, it's the student's own experience. And then we were getting an awful lot of real insightful responses from the students as to the difficulties they were having. And everybody listening knows the full spectrum of what they are
So
with
was
any given
this
student on any given day.
would this been the student login as well, the add-on to the Athena Tracker, or is this just solely through the Athena Tracker? Or is this, I know you got the student
We
login at some point.
that led us to using the student login then,
Hmm.
because the student reaction, again, the survey, the students loved seeing their profile. It, it was like overwhelmingly positive, the feedback from the students on that. And anyone I've spoken to since, at any of the SuperUser workshops, they'll all straight away, their face will light up. Oh, the student login. They say, yeah, okay, so students love it. So we moved to that with a view to them setting their own target. And then remember I had said earlier we already had an initiative going where we were trying to encourage them as a whole school initiative to take responsibility for their own learning.
Yeah.
And so that was being done in the student journal, where they'd record their results and which are the journals then were obsolete at the end of second year. You can't carry them into third year or from third year to fifth year. So we were looking to Athena to help us with the continuum, that a digital version of that. And and that's what we were working on with that initiative. We were getting, yeah.
And have you any tips on how you rolled out the student login to the school?
We It's really very easy, really. We again the fifth year was our research and development department, so we just got five teachers and said, "Come here, do you want to take your science students, your geography students, your English students, your math students, and would you mind um, if if they log in, would you mind giving some guidance, give an overview of what Athena is, Athena tracking, how important it is for them to set goals, realizable, achievable goals, and so that's how we roll that out, really. And again, would survey through the year how the students find it, and we were linking that then as well. I'm probably mixing up now because we were kind of so excited with there was so much we could do with Athena Tracker. So we were using it as well with parent-teacher meetings.
Hmm.
And so this fed in the teachers that were using that then said, geez, this is just fantastic for parent-teacher meetings. And a few of them were showing us we'd have our review meetings, just this group, this core group of teachers. And and so the initiative was always changing, by the way, because we'd adapt it based on our experiences and we'd meet and we'd say, actually, why don't we go with this route instead? So we were very flexible in what we set as our agenda, for any particular initiative. But there were teachers coming back and were saying, listen, I'm after preparing my entire script here for the upcoming parent teacher meeting. Watch this. And he was showing on notes, that everything I need to say to the parent is here, going back over the past, however the length of the initiative, 6 weeks and maybe three exams or something like that. And so then this was very positive. And then we that teacher showcased that at a staff meeting, and we just kind of dropped the idea there that maybe we'll look at this for next year. If we'll come back to you in May. And so that's what we would do then. That was the kind of modus operandi, that we'd come back at the end of the year and say, listen, we've been doing this all year. The feedback's very positive. We'll show the survey results, and we're thinking we might do X, Y, and Z.
Great. Is there any
Yeah.
advice that you could give to the attendees here about introducing the software to students and parents? So you're mentioning there about the parent-teacher meeting, but yeah, any advice on that?
That's very specific now. And, I've been spoiled, Teresa, really by just going to my account, and just scrolling down when I'm on Athena and just saying how to. Their webinars, their frequently asked questions are terrific. And also, there's a blog on the website from individuals who are probably um, giving a more coherent account than I am now of their experiences as academic monitor, and they give a very good coherent account. And on the website as well, there's like an 8-step guide to rolling out Athena as well. And there's a fantastic link to parents that you can upload onto your website, and it's an introductory page for parents.
Very nice.
So, but now to answer your question specifically, what did we do? We would have forewarned. We kept always kept parents in the loop at information nights for first years and second years. So at the fifth year one, then if we were running initiative, one of the teachers involved in rolling that out, would just outline briefly to the parents, listen, this is what we're thinking of doing. This is why we're thinking of doing it. This is where we hope it goes. But we will get back to you. Stay tuned. And we had
Brilliant.
an SIP newsletter that we'd send out twice a year. And that would give updates then on what we were currently doing and how it was going. Now, how many people read that? I'm not so sure, but
That's
and
brilliant.
but then at parent teacher meetings, we always surveyed at parent teacher meetings as well. It was a very handy forum in which to do it, and we'd have TY students with their iPads walking around the parents, asking will they fill a very quick surveys, and we found that was hugely supportive at a parent teacher at a staff meeting then there afterwards. If there was a consensus with management and with ourselves as the core group, listen, this is really positive. We should roll this out just to add more weight or oomph to that presentation. Then we'd put up the parent survey or the student survey, and it's very hard to argue against the students themselves saying, "Wow, this is brilliant," and
Yeah.
so
Um,
that was kind of how we did it.
I might move on to a few questions that we included
Sure,
on the
yeah.
sign-up sheet to this webinar. There was a box where people could put in
Okay.
questions, so I'll pick out a couple of those, Des, if that's all right. Um, so the first one, someone asked how a post holder with responsibility for academic tracking should manage their role.
Clarify with the principal what he expects of their role. That was what I was saying earlier. I thought a lot of the stress for me came from this open-ended role. And so that would be my earnest advice to anybody who's currently in it, and anybody who's been in it for a while will know what I'm talking of. Um, you need to be careful that you don't become identified as the Athena Tracker person.
Okay.
You ideally don't want to be, and that so therefore um, networking with the careers teacher would have a very strong vested interest in academic monitoring and tracking. Really, the CEO points add-on feature there from the last couple of years is just brilliant on the student profile and essential, I would imagine, if they're interviewing students individually or even collectively, with a 6 year presentation, by the careers. So you're going to have careers on your side. We were lucky, I suppose, in that the academic monitoring was being done, another duty that the poor year heads had to do. But I know that's not always the case. So, you could have an independent academic monitor, or sorry, who has to do it on their own effectively. That's going to be more difficult. But I would think clarify with the principal what's expected. Um, Develop a team as quickly as you can. Um, Read up, and I would think if you're starting out, it would be perfectly reasonable for the principal to allow you the space to take the first 8 weeks or 12 weeks, the first term, just to come up to speed with Athena, with the tracker, with all of the features, so that you're upskilled on it yourself. And at that time, really, not just for that, but that you're, setting out your team, working towards a particular initiative, planning towards a particular initiative. But I think in that regard as well, that over the last couple of years, Athena are sending out onboarding emails.
Hmm.
I think these are fantastic. I'd love to have had that a lot earlier because if I was an academic tracker and that was my core duty, this is like a checklist. There's 20 emails that are scheduled to be sent out, but a PDF of that on your desk or in your on your screen would be a great checklist to touch base with. All right, okay, this is where I'm going. And in actual fact, that would be great to use as a kind of prospectus for your team at the start of the year as well, and say, lads, this is feasible this year. This is what Athena are saying that maybe we could do this year. And that embraces so many things like how to contact with the parents, how to set up the student login. I have them here if I can just
Yeah,
deviate towards,
that's
because I
that's
knew I was going to
still
be talking about this.
no,
Quick fire
they're
advice from your Athena Tracker account managers, essential. Stay in contact, maintain contact with your account manager who will give you guidance and direction instantly.
yeah.
Um, Digitizing your gradebook and gain more insight. That's a great, and these are, when I say they're emails, so what comes out is like a quick A4 page with a few bullet points on it as a reminder, is an instruction. This is what you could be doing at this stage, or um, so that would be really I almost essential, I would think, or would be a very good practical thing to have on your desk or in your diary.
I
That
should
list.
say that if anybody hasn't been added to that onboarding sequence of emails that gets sent out throughout the year and they'd like to be or they'd like their team to be, just send us an email to info@athena.ie and we can get you added very easily. Yeah.
Can I
Um,
mention, Teresa, the handbook as well that's currently
oh
being
yeah.
produced or has just been produced? Um, that is just that's only 5 pages. I only checked on this today because
Well, you
when
just got
I
a sneak peek there now, Des. No one else has got that yet, you know. That's valuable
Well,
information.
look, I'll definitely be contacting anyone I've been involved in mentoring to say, oh, by the way, wait till you see what I've got for you now, because it is just a terrific overview of what Athena does. It brings you back to that kind of core principle of that. Look, this is just testing the child against their own potential. What that potential is based on, the rationale behind it. Very briefly, it gives you a great overview of that. It gives you the key steps to roll going forward. And it covers every aspect. It doesn't come to me, sorry, now it's not coming to my head. And there's only about 5 sections in it, but
Hmm.
it's a fantastic quick reference, I think, guide at any stage through the year. Am I doing this? And also it's brilliant to present to another colleague who's maybe onboarding with you. Can I say, Teresa, as I think of it, actually something just came to mind, is that because we were involved in most of my background was in school self-evaluation and school improvement planning, that I was very careful, and it was advice I'd got from a principal actually at the start, was that, will you be sure to credit whomever is helping you on this initiative, that whatever their submission, if they're the one that commissions the survey, or if they're the one that makes the presentation or sets out the agenda, whatever it is, be sure that they're credited on it for the report. And that made my life an awful lot easier for the next number of years when I was looking for people to help volunteer,
Hmm.
because now they had something that was a tangible link to a leadership initiative, and there was evidence there that they'd worked on it. So if they were going for an interview for a post or for whatever, this was clearly something that had very significant value. And also then they were front and center at an initiative that the management, board of management, all of the teaching staff, the parents were all aware that the school was now valuing this initiative, and there was a whole school collaboration that was being rolled out. So that has great heft.
Yeah.
If that's overstating it, maybe that's the wrong reference,
But
but
it's changing the
that
culture
has
within
value,
the school.
when you're trying to give, sorry, payback to people who are volunteering to help you.
Hmm.
You're saying, well, there is something in this for you as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Another question from the sign up form. How a school can get the most out of the software without adding to teacher workload? So have you any suggestions for that?
The perception, do you know, I was thinking of this earlier. The teacher workload was a bit of a bugbear of mine because I didn't think there was any. Well, I just couldn't seem to convince somebody. It was like trying to sell insurance or something. Or do you know that you have these financial advisors and they come on every now and then and they tell you, listen, will you change your provider every year? And you go, oh, that's great advice. Well, that sounds like too much trouble. And it's only when you do it that you realize, oh my God, right, that was so easy to do. So I think that uploading your own test results for Athena Tracker is no imposition in your workload. I don't think so. No, I know there is a perception that you're doubling up and you're already using OneNote, but look, it's just such a fantastic addition. And I think to link something from earlier, if I if we would have a year head presenting on the academic tracking, and let's say they're saying they're showcasing the expectation summary, where look at the end of the November tests, I was with the click of a button, I was able to identify the 5 students who were most in trouble against their potential. And there's a very interesting detail in the midst of it. That's not necessarily the students who are doing poorly, like as a class average or something. That could be a student who's looking to get a H1 or a H2 and isn't quite achieving that. So you could miss him as a class teacher
Mhm.
because he's doing very well. The grades are all very positive. But so if you're not using the Athena tracker, I'm saying, whereas the tracker is setting against his own expectations. So we have the year head, right? And he or she is making this presentation and saying, look, I use the expectation summary. This is brilliant. I've identified a student. But now, because teachers are uploading their own class test results, I have a great enhancement to the detail of that student's story. I have a much more informed narrative or storyline around that student over the last year or 2 years that I have instant access to. So I don't have to come to the classroom to ask you about how he's doing. I have it there in front of me. So most teachers looking at that are going to say, all right, okay, well, not only am I benefiting because I'm digitizing my own notebook, but also, I'm giving a better picture that complements what my colleague, the year ahead, is doing, what my colleague, the career
Mhm.
guidance teacher, is doing, or the individual tutors.
Yeah, I suppose the Athena Tracker is developed to aid teacher workload, not to add to it. That's one of the points of it.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. It
The
is a
last
sharp
question,
tool.
the last question I have from the sign-up sheet is a question about attendance and academic progression. So it's using the Athena Tracker for attendance and academic progression. Have you used it for that? Do you have any suggestions about using it for
That
that?
that sounds as if it's a kind of left of center and outlier question. But in actual fact, and I was thinking about this now because you did flag this with me earlier. Um, so I was thinking of that, and attendance is a huge issue. And it was mentioned by a number of deputy principals at some of the super users I attended as, it's an ongoing, it's a universal concern. And it's not just a post-COVID, but it tends to be more acute post-COVID. So it's an ongoing concern for most schools. It hadn't necessarily been part of my remit until, again, this deputy principal had come and he'd mentioned the one good teacher. And what he was saying, his rationale when presenting it to the staff was saying, look, every study and all of the international literature says that creating a positive environment is the best antidote to poor school attendance. And within that, apparently, and there's a study done by Minute where they were working with Limerick School Service. I forget the name of it. I had written it down someplace now. But I was sorry, I might put that in the notes afterwards, Teresa, or
Yeah, yeah,
something.
we
I'll
can
put
add
the
it to
name
the
of that
email to send out.
publication. But it's not that you need to read. No, it's a fairly exhaustive publication, so maybe you don't want to read it. But the bottom line in it was, in terms of advice, was setting expectations and recognizing improvements is an essential component to validating the child in school. Because ultimately, the child coming for teaching and learning, or is the current version of the 2024 version of looking at our schools has changed that to learning and teaching, prioritizing learning. So, so getting back, sorry, to the deputy principal was suggesting, he said, listen, this is the current literature. This is the key advice if you want to promote attendance. And he said, we could actually use Athena for this. Because you're validating, again, you're showing the child their own profile of achievement, and you're having non-challenging, objective questioning and a much more holistic conversation with the student. And also, I think, and maybe I'm putting words in his mouth now, but he's saying you're validating the student. And what we found it was brilliant for that, that the tracker was brilliant for that because you're saying to the student, as you're one good teacher and you're talking to your 4 students, you're keeping contact with them throughout the year. But what you are reinforcing is that I see you, I hear you. And they're getting that from a significant adult right throughout the year. And that proved hugely positive. So that's answering a few questions, but that one on attendance that I thought would be a difficult question, in actual fact, I think the Athena tracker can be. Now, obviously, look, that we have a breakfast club in the school, and we have huge extracurricular, we have a pastoral care team, and they're the more significant pillars underpinning fighting against poor school attendance. And we have a homeschool liaison officer who was brilliant, with both parents and students. But as an addition to it, we found that the Athena tracker, yeah, was very supportive.
Oh, brilliant.
There you go.
So they're the end of my questions, Days. If anybody has any other questions that they can pop into the Q&A section. I think there's a couple that Sarah has answered already. Thank you, Sarah. Do you have anything else that you want to add before we finish up, or before we get any more questions?
No, I'm scanning notes here, and off the top of my head, in summary, I look, my key takeaway would probably something I did forget to mention, actually. I think it should be made the remit of anybody involved in academic tracking that they induct somebody else, that they look towards making themselves obsolete. Who's going to carry this on? Who's
Future
going to do
proofing.
it next? Future proofing. I mean, a whole remit in looking at our school improvement planning document is leadership and management. And you're looking, management and the inspectors are looking to the school to see, are they giving opportunities for leadership roles within the school? So, I was told not to sell when you were talking to me before this, but the SuperUser Workshops, it's anybody that's giving testimony in your website who's attended those is saying they are fantastic. They are like being plugged in terms of enthusiasm, insight, broad-ranging perspective on what's possible. The one caveat to that is maybe the term super user would seem to suggest that you need huge competence and experience before you attend one, whereas in actual fact, it's the new user that would benefit most from attending those. So that would be the one thing, is try and bring somebody else on board. But that really is the remit of the principal. But it would be a good excuse or a good reminder for the principal as to why you want to bring somebody along with you to one of those. And again, the academic tracking, those open-ended posts are very difficult because teachers tend to be very conscientious and put too much pressure on themselves. So I think setting out very clear parameters and priorities in timeline at the start of the year, agreed with your principal, removes a lot of that stress. And finally, the most important thing is go slow. Take your time. Small incremental steps that are of substance are far better platform on which to build your future development of any initiative, not just the tracker. So small incremental improvements are more sustainable.
Good advice. Um, so I have a question from Neve. You might have covered this already, but this is Neve that's just in attendance today. She said, "Hi, I'm wondering what structure your conversations with students might take, how they are steered. Is it attended by a coordinator, year head, or deputy principal?"
Sorry, Teresa, the conversations with students.
So, Neve, she's wondering what is the structure of the conversations that you might have had with students? How are they steered? Is it attended by a coordinator or a year head or a deputy
Oh, it's a
principal
great
as well?
question, actually. Do you know that? And that reminds me of something. What we found when we were rolling this out in fifth year, where we were getting the students to set their own target, and then we'd have the conversation at the top of the class. With a view to saving time, we devised some acronym. I forget what it was now. I'm sorry, it doesn't come to mind, but an SIP or whatever. We came up, hardly that, but we came up with some acronym that would allow us to very quickly frame that brief conversation. What's your target? What do you intend to do about this? And we take note of this, and the teacher's formative advice on that. The other one with the one good teacher, that conversation was held by its nature, as a one-to-one, and it was the Athena tracker there was just used as an icebreaker. To be honest, it was just, look, this is how you're doing. Tell me, how do you find, or what are your plans, or why are things not working out for you, or what else can we do to help? Um, I think, yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay. Uh, Phil just had a question as well. Hi Des, I'm not a year head. This is probably more suitable for a year head than a class teacher. Would you agree?
Which
I'm
this whole webinar.
no. I'm guessing the yeah, maybe the webinar. You heard than a class teacher, or maybe just using the Athena tracker or rolling it out is what I
I
got from
haven't
it.
actually spent much on a class teacher and the benefit, but I mean that was my 9 to 5 lived experience. Well, not quite 9 to 5, but um, that was most of my experience was that I was uploading my own test results,
Yeah.
and well, it just informed conversations with students who were looking to stay, will I keep the higher level ups, or, do you think? And then you have the full profile going back to, and also their Cat 4 test results, at the outset is the foundation of it. But how they were performing was invariably linked to how much work they were doing. What was my experience, and that would have informed a lot of the conversations. What work are you doing? And what I found, what came up a lot, was that the students don't revise anywhere near as effectively as we think they do. Do you know, it's kind of an open invitation for them, and it's a bit like being told you're the academic tracker, go make that happen. It's open ended. My God, where do you start almost? And definitely the worry is, where do you finish? So when we tell students go away and revise, it's a little bit like that. Where do they start? So we found, as part of one of those initiatives, that the feedback to teachers themselves found that they were getting fantastic feedback from the students, saying that, well, actually, I'm not able to revise. The notes you gave me were whatever, and there was just great insight for the teachers themselves on those conversations. So the teacher, yeah, can benefit very significantly. Look, you're contributing to the overall picture. You're supporting the yearheads in the work they're doing, and you're supporting the careers teacher. And look, at a probably more important level, you're validating the student. I know we do that in lots of other ways. It's not just Athena. But look, Athena is complementing the fact that the child is seen and he's heard, and the implication is that he's valued. And it's brilliant, Athena, for finding that cohort of students in the middle that we tend not to see as a teacher. Do you know that you assume they're all doing this? And the high flyers and the troublesome guys tend to get, every teacher knows this. And the Athena Tracker gives you a very good reminder that you're not expecting that, oh, wow, so and so is, wow, not doing as well as I thought at all. I need to have a word. So it's really good for that. That's from the teacher's point of view, because obviously you want to give best value to all, so it helps identify maybe the quiet kids,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Brilliant. It's a great note to end on. As it's just gone past 10 to 5, I think we'll give everyone enough time to get home and get in their cars and
Can I just thought of one thing. Sorry, look,
yeah.
Teresa, but within the expectation summary, there's a new addition to it whereby you can record in the notes section there as well as to the conversation you've had. So if there's a year ahead who's going, checking the November test results and those students that underperformed, or the mock test results and those 5 or 6 students they're now targeting, oh my God, they've all underperformed. Well, you can register, your conversation. You can make a brief note of your conversation. A brilliant thing to do for an Athena administrator is to make sure that that's networked um, properly, that the careers is on board, that maybe the tutors are on board. And that would be a terrific and invaluable initiative for any Athena Tracker mentor to run. Their principal would love the idea of it. The inspectorate, when they call, to think that this has been networked and everybody's literally reading off the same sheet, and that sheet is giving testimony to the advice that was given to some student who's underperforming as how best he can remediate that or fix that. So that feature within the expectation summary is something that somebody could use as a school improvement initiative. But I'm sure they have enough work already. The last thing they wanted to hear from me actually was my closing comments, but oh, by the way, here's a whole new host of work you can get involved in. But look, it's it provides, the Athena Tracker provides so many opportunities to do your job that little bit better. I wish you well with it. And maybe I'll finish on that note.
Thank you, Jez, and your information is invaluable as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Trish.
everybody. This is being recorded and it'll be sent out tomorrow. If there's anything else that you think wasn't covered, if you have any questions, just email info@athena.ie. Thanks again, Des,
Okay,
and
cheers. Thanks very much. Thanks to
bye,
everybody who
everybody.
gave up of their time.